Good evening, members. My name is Franz Hartz. I'm a CFA charter holder and president of the board of CFA Society France. Thank you for joining this year's annual general meeting for CFA Society France. On behalf of the board, I would like to give you a summary of what transpired during fiscal year ending June 30th, 2022. First of all, congratulations to the 226 newly minted CFA charter holders whom we had a chance to meet at the Charter Awards ceremony this past December. And now, some highlights and numbers for the past year. It's time for a new normal. Members were adamant about bringing back in-person events. We held 13 of these events in the past 12 months. The cocktails following these events were an excellent way to meet new people and touch base with old peers. We reached a historical peak of nearly 1,300 members, an increase of 8%. CFA candidates for all levels 1, 2, and 3 reached more than 3,400, an increase of 38% from last year. Membership is critical as it allows us to employ a professional staff, get help from more volunteers, which allows us to better organize events and resources for each of our members. We continue to see a very high level of interest for the certificate in ESG. Not too surprising, with registrations more than doubling to more than 850 by June 2022. In addition, a wide variety of ESG initiatives were hosted throughout the year, including webinars, candidate support, and workshops. We held 21 educational webinars. We improved our visibility by increasing video recordings, including workshops, which are available on our YouTube channel. There was success in our social media strategy where we increased visibility with an 80% plus uptick in followers on LinkedIn and more than 8,000 views on YouTube. The 8th edition of the Media Awards was held in June with 26 articles submitted. In addition, looking at career services, they continued to deliver value to members via career series events, the Tuesday job offers mailing, and the mentoring program. This is a really great way for mentees and mentors to open their networks and to get help solving problems with career advice and making introductions to our peers in the industry. I personally have been involved in this program for the past 4 years, and I employ each of you either as a mentor or a mentee to sign up. I can tell you that I feel like I've gained more as a mentor than I believe the mentees have, but that's just my opinion. Also this year, CFA Society France, in collaboration with CFA Institute, launched the Young Women in Investment program in France. That being said, we still have a lot of work to do on diversity and inclusions initiatives, and this is something we really need to work more on next year. Our new strategic partnerships with Refinitiv and SimCorp allowed CFA Society France to further enhance the quality of our services for members and candidates. Switching to the business strategy side, the acquisition of finance training was abandoned as the French tax authorities had still not provided a response to the tax implications of the acquisitions 15 months after our original request. A formal response no later than March 31, 2022 was a condition necessary to complete the transaction. 2022 represented a year of transition on the staffing front. Now, with the transaction of finance training abandoned, Nathalie Columelli resigned as executive director and retook her former role at finance training. Effective May 2022, Alejandro Geniesto was promoted to executive director of CFA Society France. He was previously our CFO, COO. He will be tasked to execute the new strategy direction decided by the board over the next 3 years. Alejandro knows a lot of the members at the CFA Institute, as well as many of the volunteers at CFA Society France to help us continue what we need to do going forward. Marie-Élix de Meyer resigned in April to embark on a new endeavor, and we would like to thank her for her contribution over the past 3 years for everything that she's given. Sonia Alam was recently hired as the Events and Operations Manager, joining us in May 2022. She is a graduate of Kedge Business School and joined us from Samsic, where she managed contracts, procurement, human resources for Amazon France. And we look forward to working with Sonia, and we are pleased to have her on board. We also continue engaging with 19 affiliated universities for the CFA program. 15 university teams competed for the 16th edition of the Research Challenge, and the Quant Awards are back. We co-organized this with Ireland, the Netherlands, and Spain. And now a word on volunteers. Almost 100 volunteers collaborated with our staff to provide member and candidate services throughout the year. A big thank you to you, the volunteers, and fellow board members who gave up their spare time to make things happen. These include the Volunteer of the Year Award winners, Antoine Flippo, Guillaume Crenic, David Montoya, and Elise Savoie. Finally, this month, you will receive an email from CFA Society France. We will be conducting a survey to ask you, as members, what you would like to get out of your membership with CFA Society France. Please reply and help us improve. And as we mentioned in the annual report, we are here for you, but we need you as well. Please get involved, volunteer, come to our events, and help us make our society better.
Thank you, Franz. Good evening, everybody. My name is Alejandro Iniesta. I am Executive Director of CFA Society France and part of the permanent staff together with Sonia Lam. Tonight, I will walk you through the financial highlights of last year, and afterwards, I will give you an overview of what's next for our society. Revenues were down this year from 654,000 to 534,000, mainly because CFA Institute funding for the Society 2.0 project decreased by 65,000. This was the third and last year of the funding we received to support the Society 2.0 project, and we are currently working on a new 3-year business plan to ensure new funding. Expenses also decreased this year from 626,000 to 543,000. In consequence, last year we posted a small loss of 9,000 euros. This was less than we had forecasted and a direct effect of the withdrawal from the acquisition of finance training. CFA Society France remains in a very healthy financial position, with free cash reserves available of 350,000 as of June, roughly the same level as last year. This allows us to ensure 9 months of current expenses, well within our objective to maintain at least enough cash to cover 6 months of current expenses. If we look at our sources of revenue for last year in detail, CFA Institute-related funding accounted for 70% of our revenues. Out of these, Society 2.0 funding was 50% of these revenues, and operational funding represented roughly 20%. Hence, other revenues represent 30% of our budget. Out of these, membership revenue remains the most important component, with 102,000, revenue from sponsorship, 52,000, and certificate in ESG investing, 20,000, more than doubled from last year. Finally, revenue from candidate education, mainly mock exams, was 12,000. This was slightly disappointing and could be a side effect of fewer candidates due to the pandemic and Zoom fatigue. But enough about revenues, let's look at expenses now. Our main cost drivers last year were 4. The first were staff costs, which accounted for 75% of total costs and decreased 10% in respect to last year. The second were operating and office costs, which also decreased from 43,000 to 27,000. This was mainly due to the decision to leave our traditional office and move to a flexible open space in November. The third were programming and events expenses, which remained low for the first half of the year due to COVID-19 restrictions, but gradually accelerated to reach 52,000, a sharp increase from last year's anecdotal 6,000. Finally, technology costs remained at 23,000, mainly due to our accounting software licenses. It should be noted that legal and consulting costs were very low this year at 9,000, as the termination of the acquisition of finance training was resolved by the board without incurring in legal fees. And now let's conclude with next year's budget. Next year's budget remains approximately at the same level as last year. Revenues should reach 541,000, with CFA Institute still representing the lion's share at 63%, but gradually decreasing in importance. Other revenues should reach 200,000, with membership revenue, revenue from sponsorship, and revenue from the certificate in ESG investing roughly at the same level as last year. We, however, expect revenue from candidate education to rebound and reach 20,000 on the back of increased marketing. Expenses are forecasted to reach 526,000, and staff costs should account for roughly 55% of total cost, down from 75% last year. This is mainly due to the fact that going forward, we will operate with 2 and not 3 permanent staff. Expenses related to events will increase significantly and reach 114,000, that is 22% of total expenses. Technology and operating and office costs should remain at the same level as last year, and CFA Society France remains committed to delivering member value and to launching impactful projects. New sources of revenues to pursue our diversification and financial independence from CFA Institute will be identified together with the board as we set a new strategic course for the society. If the past few years have taught us something, is that forecasting is more complicated than ever. But at CFA Society France, we intend to meet you more by continuing to provide networking opportunities through diverse in-person events. We also want to reach out more and more efficiently. ESG, ethics, universities, corporates, institutions. This will be possible thanks to our ESG ambassadors and advocacy committees. We also want to keep learning and to help you keep learning. So we have dedicated a new budget line to train staff, volunteers and members on diverse skills to serve the society. This next year, we will also launch the Wealth Management Subcommittee. These people will launch a series of initiatives and events in this space. And finally, building on what we delivered this year, the Young Women in Investment Management program, we would like to do more on diversity and inclusion. We expect to hear from you. Please be proactive and respond to our survey or just reach out by email or in person with any idea or comment that could make us advance. Thanks a lot for your time and patience. It's been a pleasure. And now over to Boubacar.
Hi, I am Boubacar Kabore, Director of CFA Society France and Chair of the Audit Committee. The board is in the process of completing the first edition of our board manual. The board manual serves several functions. It is an orientation handbook that provides useful information about our organization, the decision processes, the board structures, and the recurring operations. The manual will become a key working tool and resource for the board, the volunteers, and more broadly our organization. While our governance review has produced tangible results this year, the work is far from complete. This year, new material will be added to create an up-to-date reference. As an example, the board is working on a volunteer code of conduct that will outline the roles and responsibilities of our volunteers, as well as define procedures dealing with any conflict of interest that may arise. In order to make sure that the staff execute the strategy defined by the board adopt and communicate in September 2021 3 key priorities for the years: member value, diversity, and visibility. Another equally important step which is currently underway is ensuring that the treasurer, in liaison with the Audit and Risk Committee, supervise the budget monthly on behalf of the board and in line with the well-said priority. On audit, in line with best corporate governance practices and CFA Institute requirements, the primary purpose of the Audit Committee is to provide oversight on financial reporting and audit processes, internal expenses, payment control, and compliance with law and regulation. This year, the top priority of our committee was the intended acquisition of finance training and the subsequent unwinding of the transaction. As such, the Audit Committee has conducted various discussions and controls in several areas potentially impacting CFA Society France financial statements. The aim was to ensure a successful integration of the transaction. The committee, in collaboration with the staffs, finalized the work initiated last year, most notably principles related to invoices and expense validations, payment workflows, and audit checklist. What are the next steps for the coming years? The Audit Committee will supervise the new staff in the executions of the strategy outlined by the board, including the financial budget. Collaborate with the Investment Committee in the process of defining the allocation criteria for the cash management. Change of the bylaws. Bringing more value to our members is a top priority for the board over the coming years. Consequently, the board has begun discussion on increasing the definition of associate member of the society. We therefore voted on proposing the holder of the certificate in ESG investing as associate member of CFA Society France. Why? ESG has gained a greater importance among investors, policymakers, and other key stakeholders because it is seen as a way to safeguard business for future risks and preserve our planet. We all agree that ESG is a core topic for the French investment committees and for our society. And the growing numbers of registrations for the certificates is a proof. Making certificate holders associate members of our society was therefore a natural step forward, as it would not only increase and diversify our membership, but it would also enhance the value proposition to existing members on an important and growing thematics. The draft text for the change in the bylaw was adopted, so thank you